Hello. In this video, we are going to improve our Space Invaders to where the bombs drop more often throughout the game, but not too many. Because right now we just have it to where all of the aliens drop bombs immediately. So we want to time that out a little bit better, and but not have every single one of them drop a bomb at the same time. But this is like the heart of what we had. And code usually works this way, that you kind of start from the middle and then you work your way out. So we do have the heart of this idea. So there's hopefully some other functions that could help us um, maybe slow the process down a little bit. So let's try to think about that. So right now we just say for every alien, add a bomb. So maybe we need to stop that somewhat. So that's where an if statement would come in to say, well, should it drop a bomb or should it not, maybe? Um, let's take this idea and surround it in an if statement. So say if, parentheses, 3 greater than 2, just to get started here, and curly braces. So I'll take the add stuff and move that inside the curly braces. All right, now as it stands right now, I'm just going to fix my tabs here. Select these things and tab them. So as it stands right now, it's still going to happen because 3 is greater than 2. That fact is never going to change. But if I use some variables maybe, then I could make this choose whether it should drop a bomb or not. So I think just a random number would be a great way to do this. So Kaboom does have a random number generator. So there's something we could do there. Kaboom actually also has this thing called chance, which is kind of nice. Um, that it could help pick whether something should happen or not. But it's not too hard to implement it in kind of the normal JavaScript way either. So what if we could get a random number, and then if that number is big enough or small enough or something like that, then um, then that's when it should happen. So let's take this one and just get a random number. Now, how could we do that? Um, there's some functions Kaboom has, but JavaScript has capital M math dot random parentheses. So that will pick a random number between 0 and 1. So it's going to be like a decimal point. So it could be 0.5, it could be 0.0159, and the numbers go on for a long time. So let's think of it this way. If the number is so small, um, then that's how we know it should fire. So I'm going to say if this number is smaller than, now if I say less than 2, they all are going to be smaller than that. Let's just double check that idea. Yep, so they're all happening. But if we set it to 0.5, which is like 50%, then on average, it should be that only half of the aliens drop a bomb then. So we can think of this like a percentage number. If I just type a 0, then that starts to look more like that percentage. And just remember that percentages look like this in decimal format. So 50% looks like 0.50. You divide by 100, or put a dot in front of it, and that's how you get these decimal numbers instead of a percentage. So what if we only wanted 10% of aliens to drop a bomb? Right, so I think I saw 5, and that was, there are 50 aliens, so that seems about right. If I only wanted 5% of the aliens, then maybe I'd just get 1 or something like that. Now this is random, it's average, so it could turn up that I get 20 sometime. Yep, so I mean it will. I got 4 right there, so it's all random, but it's at least going to make it a lot smaller. There could be different ways that we could very carefully calculate that each of them wait a certain amount of time, but this would be good enough. So yeah, now we've got it to where they only some of the aliens do, and every time I press play, it's a different one, so that makes it interesting. Um, So now we want it to actually repeat more. Now that we've slowed it down enough, we want it to keep happening. And there are a few different ways we could do that. Kaboom does have this function called a loop. So we could set it kind of on a timer. But I think it might even be more interesting to make the timing of it a little bit random too. So we could use loop and make it random. But there's this thing called on update, which just constantly happens. So on updating, for a certain element, or on updating for a just the whole game, it will keep calling this code. The reason why we're only seeing bombs at the very beginning is because the every function runs, takes every alien, and then it just never happens again. So on update does keep happening constantly. So we can kind of combine these ideas. So before every, I'm actually going to take this and put it inside. I'm going to call on update with a lowercase o, on update. And there's two versions. The one takes in a string for the tag, but I'm not going to do that. Um, Although actually, I could. And what I could do actually is just replace every with on update. On update. Because that will give me each of the aliens then. So this should keep happening. So you notice, just an overwhelming amount of bombs that are falling here. Um, so we just keep tweaking this, and it's the randomness, because we've got to remember that on update is happening 60 times per second. So this number needs to get smaller and smaller. I could divide by 60, um, and just pick an even smaller number here. So if I divide by 10, well, that's just adding a zero. And maybe set it to 1. So now this should get me about the same effect. Yeah, and that might even still be too much. Maybe I want to add another 0 in front of it, make it even smaller. So now it should happen about a tenth of the time. So we can play with this number to get exactly what we want, maybe like something like that. Yeah, so some number around here feels about right. So it's any random alien could possibly drop something, but it's going to constantly happen. So I think we got this pretty well. The only adjustment I would make is it doesn't really come from the center of the alien. And when the aliens were created, there might be something we could do about that. Spawn aliens. Wonder if we just use the center origin, and that would help to fix everything. So I'm going to take a look at spawn aliens here, and then add an origin component to it. Quotes or parens quotes center, and then comma, because I just added a component. So that just means, like, by default, um, rectangles or even images will the X and Y position is all about their top left corner. So that's why it looks the way that it looks right now. But I can just change that to say, no, the center of the object, that should be what X and Y is. So that's going to make a slight adjustment um, to the way that it looks. And then if I want to make that even better, it almost looks like they're coming from the center there. Then I could just do the same thing for the bombs themselves. They're only 15 pixels wide, but it'd make it look better. So the bomb also be good to set the origin to the center as opposed to the top left. That's what it is by default. That'll make it look slightly better. And I think with the lasers, we did the whole cleanup thing. So let's just add that to the bomb, the clean up function, because I think it's going to start to get pretty laggy. So add the cleanup function to the bombs. That way, when they go off screen, they just get destroyed and they're not going to take up RAM anymore. So hard to notice the difference, but maybe I'm already seeing how it's not lagging as much. Um, yeah, and that randomness does, you saw there was a moment where there weren't any. Okay, so that's looking good. I'm still, I want to tweak it just a little bit more. You barely notice it, but they do come from the center of the alien, and I'd like it to come a little bit lower. Um, so I could do this here. Right now, the position of the bomb we're just saying um, is just alien.pause. Just give me whatever that was. So I could do this. Maybe we'll make a variable to do some calculations. Const, let's just call it b pause, like bomb pause, which currently we're just saying a dot pause, like take the alien's position and that's it. So I could swap line 57 here to say b pause. It's going to give me the same result, but I'm using this variable. But I can adjust that a little bit. So instead of it b pause just equaling a dot pause, the alien's position, then maybe I could move it down just a little bit. So we have these things called vec2s. That's what the position is. It's a combination of x and y together. And it can actually do a few interesting things. I can just add to a different vector, or I can just add to different numbers. So this is what I want. I want to add a little bit just to make it a little bit lower. So I would say a dot pause dot add. I'm going to use this add function to add a little more in the y positioning here. So um, this version, I'll give it two numbers, two parameters. 0 for the x, just leave it in the center, but move it down just a little bit. So if I say like 20 or something like that, that should make it more like the bombs are coming from the bottom of that alien. And I wonder if there's even a way to make this a variable. Instead of 20, could we actually get like the width or the height of the alien? Could we say a dot height? All right, and I think we'd want to say a dot height divided by 2 because it's coming from the center. We just adjust it by that much. And I think then we even want, yeah, okay. So that wasn't really necessary, but I just wanted to tweak that a little bit. All right, so now the bombs dropping I think is working better.